Okay, this is Jeff Welch and some Southern cooking. I wanted to show everyone how I make buttermilk biscuits, and they're not that difficult to make actually, so I'm going to show you. Well, I've been sifting flour, and you want good sifted flour, and I use White Lily self-rising. You can always use all-purpose flour, and if you do use all-purpose flour, what you want to do is you want to add your baking powder and your baking soda to it to make sure that it rises. And today I'm going to be using, my shortening is going to be lard. I'm going to actually use it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to make buttermilk biscuits the old-fashioned way with lard. You can always use Crisco if you want to use shortening instead of lard, but today I'm going to use lard. Now what I do is I start with a pile of sifted self-rising flour today. I'm gonna make it easy on those of you who are cooking from home. Use White Lily self-rising flour, and it's gonna make your biscuits real nice and fluffy if you sift it out correctly. Now what do I have in this bowl? I'm gonna be adding this in a moment. This is just some egg whites, not egg yolks, just egg whites. It's gonna help hold everything together. I have some buttermilk here that is non-homogenized buttermilk. I have some butter and a little bit of sea salt. That's all it takes, but you have to do it a certain way. Now, my pan that I'm using is a cast iron pan. I'm gonna be cooking this in the oven. I've already pre-seasoned it with some, by spreading some lard around the edges, just a fine, small amount around the edges, just to coat it so that it doesn't stick to the pan. Now, those of you who are listening, this right here is going to be the best buttermilk biscuits you've ever eaten in your life. Now watch us make it. First of all, I'm going to make a bowl here to put the ingredients in, because I'm going to integrate the flour as I go. It's not going to be anything but the old-fashioned way. Obviously, we want some lard. Now, you don't need a lot of this. A little bit's gonna go a long way. You don't wanna make your biscuits too heavy. So don't use too much lard. In fact, we're gonna add some butter into this as well, because butter is gonna give it that flavor that it needs. And the lard will as well. This is, by the way, this is Amish butter. And we're gonna break it up and let it fall into the flour and integrate into it just right. And now we're going to add some sea salt. Not much at all. And outside of this, we're just going to mix these dry ingredients, semi-dry ingredients first, so that it all integrates perfectly together. Okay. Now, don't rush it, because those of you who rush it and you want to put your fingers in it all, and when you do that, what's going to happen here is you're going to break it down wrong. And if you just take your time and make sure that you keep every one of your ingredients, especially the oils here, the greases, you want to make sure that they're coated well with the flour and that you break it into small pieces. So you're going to have to constantly mix the flour in with it so that it doesn't stick together, breaks it apart into smaller pieces. Now, this is going to take just a few moments. You notice I'm just bringing in just a little flour as I go. I'm making sure I'm being careful so I don't flick any of my butter or my lard out into the outside edges, because I want to make sure I keep it in the center. I have it on some parchment paper here so it doesn't stick. And it's separating really well, okay? Occasionally you may have to get messy, and that's okay as well. We're okay with mess. This is home cooking, Southern style. Now, and again, everybody has a different preference of the type of food that they will eat. If you don't eat pork, then don't use lard. It's that simple. Taking my time. This is all coming together nicely. Looks really good so far, and I haven't even added the buttermilk or the egg whites to it. Now, why do I add egg whites? Because I want my biscuits to be fluffy, but I also want them to stay together and not completely crumble apart when you're cutting into them. I don't add enough to egg whites to the ingredient to actually cause it to change the taste so much. In fact, it actually helps it in my opinion. I always whisk it before I put them in. These are cage-free eggs. So I pour them into the flour, butter, and Crisco mix. Not Crisco, but lard today. And again, I just keep mixing. And I'm gentle with it because you don't want to be too rough with it, because if you are, your biscuits just won't turn out the same. You want to take your time. You have this real large volcano edge of flour you can keep bringing in through the middle. That keeps anything from running off the sides. And you have now the main ingredients all coming together nicely. You can do this with your hands too, but again, you want to be very gentle with it, even if you do it with your hands. You can do it, if you're going to do it with your hands, just use your fingertips, nothing else. Okay? Just your fingertips and nothing else. Now, this is where it gets fun. I'm going to be adding some buttermilk. This is non-homogenized buttermilk. Now I'm going to use my fingers because I want to control it better. And I'm going to, I don't want it too dry. I want to keep that moisture in here. So the moisture is going to come from you not kneading it too much. You don't want to work it too much, but you also want to integrate all of the ingredients to where they become one. Okay? Simple homemade Southern buttermilk biscuits. Now, if you notice, I didn't put a lot of salt in these, and I didn't add any extra special ingredients. If you want to make special biscuits, cheese biscuits, whatever, you can do that by just adding other ingredients to it. But these are just simple, homemade buttermilk, Southern buttermilk biscuits. Hey, you notice it's coming together nicely here? This is really good looking biscuits. And I even like the smell of them even at this stage. There's something about it when all these ingredients come together. Now you notice the consistency here. I can either add more buttermilk or more flour. The other ingredients are just fine, depending on how many that I want to make. I'm definitely going to be making enough just for a cast iron skillet. So if I'm making enough for a cast iron skillet, I just eyeball the amount of ingredients. I don't measure so much. When you measure, you're really not working with the consistency so much, because sometimes even the atmosphere, the humidity in the air, and everything else can make a difference. And I want these biscuits to turn out perfect, like always. And right now they're looking really good. If you notice how it's all coming together. Okay. Now you notice how wet it is, how it's flattening out on its own. When you get to that point right there and it's got that stickiness to it, you're at the perfect place. Stop. Okay? I'm gonna rinse off my hands and get some flour in my hands. Now we're gonna start actually placing the biscuits into the skillet. I have my it's a very well seasoned cast iron pan. This is a very old cast iron pan. And I just took the lard and made a very fine coat on the pan. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees, okay? Now, this is where I want flour on my hands. I wanna make sure I have my hands coated with flour. That way they won't stick to what I'm trying to do. Now, I scoop it up. I don't use a cup to cut them out. You can roll this out, cut it, but usually you have to have it dry when you do that. I like my biscuits very moist when I'm actually putting them together. And so what I'm gonna do is I make sure I have plenty of flour on the edge of my hand, and then I just scoop it up like this right here. And I roll it, and I place it in the pan. It's that simple. So I put the flour on the edge of my hand each time, roll it, and I keep putting them in the pan. Just keep repeating. I have plenty of flour on my hands. I don't put any flour in the pan. I let the grease take care of that. Some of these biscuits are going to be smaller than others. I'm not getting fancy. This is just an old-fashioned buttermilk biscuits, and they're looking really good. Okay, now, if you feel like you need more biscuits than you make, just mix up a little bit more and you'll be fine. I'm not gonna go to the trouble of doing that. I'm just gonna basically let it cook and let you see how they turn out. I'm not trying to get fancy today. I'm just basically trying to show you how it's done. Okay, the biscuits are about ready to come out of the oven. And what I do is right before they're ready to pull out of the oven, I'll brush some butter. I use Amish butter. I don't use fake butter, margarine or anything like that. And then I brush it onto the biscuit tops. And then right before they're done, I'll put it on broil low. Broil low. So just letting you know, they're almost done. Okay, there you go. There's some perfect buttermilk biscuits. They're not stuck to the pan. They're just fresh out of the oven. Now, as they first come out of the oven, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brush them with some butter again. This will just amazing what it does. There you go, folks, the perfect buttermilk biscuits. You see this? Now, we want all sides brown. That's why I use the cast iron pan. I'm gonna put this over top. I'm gonna turn them upside down so you can see that the back side, the bottom side, is also browned as well. And it doesn't stick to the pan if it's a good seasoned pan. Look at this. Those are perfect biscuits. Perfect biscuits. Now, you want to serve them right side up. Then what you do is you basically take another plate on top of it. Very simple, just like that. Flip it over. And now you have some perfect buttermilk biscuits. Now these biscuits, I made these small. I made them small. You see when I rolled them up, because it's just me here. I'm not feeding anyone. But these are perfect to make a very good butter and honey biscuit. In fact, I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do right now, if you'd like for me to show you how I do it. Now these are, look at this, steaming hot, perfect biscuits. I'm gonna slice this. Perfect, look how fluffy those are. Perfect. Again, I use Amish butter, and which is my favorite butter. I like butter that's real. I don't like butter that's fake. Like everything real, just like we had it on the farm. Love my coffee. This is my dad cup that my daughter got me. And so what I do is I usually put a little honey on it. And that makes the perfect biscuit. Sourwood honey. Take a look at that. That is one good biscuit. They're light, flaky, good edge. You see there, look at that. Rose good. That's some delicious buttermilk biscuits right there. Thank you for joining me. This is Jeff's Southern Style Buttermilk Biscuits in a cast iron pan. God bless.